Let's talk snacks. Who here loves choco pies? Can you please raise your hand? Yeah, I bet many of us here grew up with these snacks in Korea, and for me at least, it used to be one of my favorite snacks back in 2013, the same year I moved to New Zealand. And now you might be wondering, New Zealand? What in the world does this choco pie have to do with my trip to New Zealand? Well, this might seem like a simple treat, but believe me, it plays a big role in my story. So I want you guys to keep this image of this choco pie in your mind. Let's take a moment to think back to that year 2013. You see, back in Korea, sending your children abroad for early education was all the rage. You know how competitive Korean education can be, right? So it was basically a trend to send your child abroad. And of course, my dad jumped right on that trend, convinced by the craze of studying abroad, and decided to send me and my mom there for a year. And that's how I ended up on this plane to this faraway place, leaving behind my home and everything. By the way, I just turned 6 by then. Just a little kid, wasn't I? And this is Maori, by the way, the inhabitants of New Zealand. But anyways, the problem here was that I was very, very young and was still struggling with my mother tongue language, and off I went to a foreign country. Now, can you just think about the amount of fear that little me got and the pressure I felt stepping to this beautiful yet strange land? Imagine being me staring out the airplane window as you soar into the sky and see your homelands shrinking into tiny patches below you. And that was me, everything. Trust me, everything was very new to me and so unfamiliar. Feeling like a fish out of water, I was leaving my home, my friends, and everything I had, making me so uncertain about what would await me in New Zealand. The people, the language, the culture, it all felt so different for me, and I missed the warmth of home. So they are the members of the host family that hosted a homestay for me and my mom. And see me there, sitting there awkwardly trying to figure it all out. They were amazing and lovely, I would admit, but yet at that time, all I felt was loneliness and overwhelmed from stressing out about how I was supposed to fit in. But things got just more and more complicated for my younger self, especially the relationship between me and them. Supposedly, they were expecting just me to stay with them, but because of visa issues, my mom had to follow me along and stay along with the family. You know, opening up a space for a child in your house and opening up more space for a strange adult woman is totally different. So it wasn't what they had planned and what we had planned also. So everything was very out of touch, and things started very awkwardly. It was hard enough adjusting to a new country, new language, and a new way of life. But without a truly comfortable place to call home, it felt like there were no escape from unease. Now, it was about a week or two since I arrived in New Zealand, Auckland, and it was bedtime. I was lying next to my mom, closing my eyes and holding my hands, and my mom started off this, the late night, deep talks. And my mom was like, "Hey, Suah, what do you think about New Zealand so far?" By the way, that's my name. And I said, "Mom, honestly, I love New Zealand, but I feel like there isn't very much Chong." Wait, Chong? Let me pause for a moment and explain what Chong is. Now, Chong is one of the words that even native Korean speakers find it hard to explain. You know that feeling when a neighbor helps you to shovel snow off your driveway, not because they're asked to, but because of your well-being? Or you might have an old friend that you didn't meet for a long time, but once you meet, it's like no time has passed. That deep, long-standing connection that stays strong despite distance of time is called Chong. Specifically, it's an unspoken bond through shared experiences, a warmth that makes you feel at home even in the most unfamiliar places. Now, the definition of Chong in the dictionary means love, care, and affection. But let me tell you, it goes way beyond that. So back to what I was saying, and let me clarify, don't get me wrong. What I meant by 정이 없다, that they don't have any Chong, is from an experience from my monthly picnic. So we used to have this monthly picnic where our host family and I goes to this national park and have some time to have a picnic with the family members. And every time I was so excited to share food and enjoy the company, but as I looked around, I noticed that each family members kept to their own food and set up their own picnic spots, just like we are isolated or something. Well, in Korea, meals are often communal. Everyone shares dishes, and there's a belief that meals together are meant to show affection and togetherness. And that's what Chong I knew back then was all about. And that's when I felt, 진짜 여기 정이 없다, meaning they don't have any Chong. Well, because I didn't see the invisible threads that tie us together as a family, which I used to feel and see back in my hometown. And my mom was listening to me, and she said, but Suah, you should know that in Korea, we thrive on bonding, and like you said, that sense of collective belonging. But New Zealand often emphasizes individualism. They're just showing their affection in different manners. It's just a cultural difference. But I still can't understand. I was so confused. That whole week, I was so miserable, and it felt as if I was the only person on that side, and the only other person who was on that side, which my mom, didn't really get it either. Especially low and homesick, I went in my room one day, and my host mom walked in. And I thought my host mom would just brush me off like usual, because like I said, we weren't very close to each other. But to my surprise, she came up to me with a warm smile and said, I understand how you feel. And it was very unexpected, because especially since we always had to have the best relationship. And there, she handed me this red packaging of choco pie. I was so surprised to see this packaging in that room in front of me because, nowadays, Korean foods are very popular and you can see it everywhere. But back then, it was very rare and to find something like this in a foreign country. This wasn't just a snack anymore. A little piece of Korea in my hands, and that was all I needed back then. All the heaviness I have been feeling from trying to adjust to this unfamiliar place suddenly lifted. And there she went. I went to this supermarket, and there was this Asian section. And I saw this, and this reminded me of you. So I bought this, just for you, just for me. And I was so surprised because that awkwardness lingering in the air popped as soon as she said that. And I felt like I felt closer to her all of a sudden. And I was looking at this packaging, and I noticed this character. It's Chong on the package. This really stuck to me because this means that she literally and metaphorically gave me Chong. And even though I could tell that she didn't really welcome me at first, and we weren't really close, she still thought of me and showed care in her own way. And that small gesture meant a lot to me. Now, here's the thing. A cool thing about Chong and the difference between simple kindness and affection is that Chong can exist even between people who don't always see eye to eye. That's the unique thing about Chong. There's room for Chong even in complicated relationships, just like my host mom and I. And Chong goes deeper. It's about a shared connection and a bond that reflects understanding and empathy. It's like a thread linking people from mind to mind in shared experiences, love, and even challenges. And that's the moment when I felt the flicker of an emotional tie that held us together regardless of where we came from. There had been Chong between us this whole time, but it was just that the actions came in different forms and volumes. So what does this mean to us? We can foster the same sense of Chong everywhere. It's about reaching out to others, sharing experiences, and creating a community, not within just Korea, where the term only exists in Korea, but also in foreign countries. And now I stand here to tell you guys that I urge you all to explore the beauty of Chong. Whether it's in a classroom, a friendship, or a community, or even strangers like we used to be, and take the time to understand those around you. Understanding the concept of Chong is very hard. Like, I could barely give you the hint of the feeling of what Chong is in this short speech, and I know that it doesn't have a simple definition. But once you know what Chong is, it will be a stepping stone to foster international bonding and encourage us to look for commonalities in our shared experience and to appreciate the subtle act of kindness and to create an environment where everyone feels valued and understood. Practice Chong, the kindness, empathy, and connection, and see how it can transform your relationships. And even seek out for Chong in your daily interactions. Look for those moments. Don't just limit Chong to some culture or country, like what I used to do, but instead, let's expand it to a universal concept that can bind us together. Creating a global family, remember, even in a diverse world where we can find common ground through shared experiences and connection, in our increasing interconnected world, we have the opportunity to build bridges and create bonds that transcend geographical and cultural divides. And use Chong, and there we can transform from strangers into families. Thank you.